Welcome to Shots from the Pillbox, your bi-monthly frontal assault on the Gender Grievance Industrial Complex in sports. For those seeking to stand against the attack on the masculine in sports and sports media, this is where the resistance begins. My partner in crime, now and henceforth, from the Sharp Reality Command Center, moving from coast to coast, Donovan Sharp. And Donovan, here's to new beginnings. I mean, we've got the best part of the sports calendar about to start. College football just started. The U.S. Open is in full swing, and we're 6 or 7 days from the beginning of the NFL season. And we're going to start the new era of Shots from the Pillbox. And we got a lot of stuff to talk about. The meat, as you say, is very fully on the bone. How are you today, partner?
I'm doing good, man. Yeah, definitely liking the new surroundings that I have. But I got to tell you, Doctore, I'm mad for two reasons. Number one, this Ezekiel Elliott thing's got my panties in a bunch. But number two, man, I blew $100 on a fight that I knew the outcome of. Listen, I was a sucker. I bought in. I spent the money. Good God Almighty!
And that's so funny because what I told you is the person that invited me to come watch the fight, I gave them fair warning because I vowed to myself 2 months ago when this farce was first announced that I might watch it. However, I told my friend, and what I told him is, look, if you and his girlfriend, his fiance, if you guys are going to invite me over to your house, because I usually pitch in, it's usually $60 for a pay-per-view. I throw 20 or 30 bucks in. I'm a grown ass man. I'm going to pay my share. Okay. So when I meet them at the bar, same thing. I pay for my meals. Same deal. Grown men do grown man shit. But I told him in this particular case, look, if you're going to invite me, just understand, I am not going to contribute to this farce in the primary or the secondary market.
Oh, man.
So therefore, if I'm going to be hanging out with you guys, understand I am going to be 100% freeloading.
You were one of the smart ones because I would have been one of the dumb ones that says, no, don't worry about it, man. I got it. You can just come and enjoy the spectacle. Hey, I mean, we're going to talk about this later, but yeah, I mean, the spectacle up to and including the quote unquote fight, it wasn't a good fight from a technical standpoint, but it was entertaining. And
it was entertaining. It was entertaining. It was fun. And it was fun to see certain people like these groupies. We'll get into that later. So we got a ton of things to talk about, 70 or 80 different topics. And we're going to start with, well, you know what? Who the hell am I kidding? We're going to get right into Ezekiel Elliott. And with this case, it has been indeed a long and winding road, beginning with reported incidents that occurred allegedly long before Elliott took the snap in the NFL. So give us a rundown of the background, will you, Donovan?
Yeah, absolutely. The Zeke Elliott, Tiffany Thompson saga started last year in 2016. Tiffany Thompson accused Ezekiel Elliott of domestic violence on multiple occasions. And so, of course, the usual fake outrage happened, more or less convicting Elliott before he was even convicted, charged, or even arrested. So an investigation ensued. There were accusations. There was he said, she said. Tiffany Thompson apparently had pictures of bruises, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the Columbus PD didn't arrest Elliott, nor have they charged him, nor has he been found guilty of any wrongdoing in a court of law. He hasn't been arrested for these particular violations. And the Columbus PD cites multiple times inconsistencies in the accuser's story as one of the many reasons they didn't charge him. Well, the NFL, true to form, caving to the social justice warriors, the Twitter outrage, the feminists, they suspended Ezekiel Elliott for 6 games despite the Columbus PD not pressing charges and quite literally telling the NFL that the accuser was not credible, inconsistencies in her story. Well, predictably, Ezekiel Elliott and his legal team filed an appeal, and the hearings started, I think, at the beginning of this week. And actually, they're being heard now, and they're being heard by arbiter Harold Henderson, who I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Doctore also oversaw the Adrian Peterson appeal hearing. story. Yes. So earlier this week, during the hearings, we learned that the NFL would not require Tiffany Thompson to be present for the appeal hearings. What this means, Doctore, is that Zeke's legal team would not be able to cross-examine Thompson and her story. And by the way, you and I discussed this before. Zeke hired Jeffrey Kessler. And I believe that in the eloquent words that you normally use, you said it's on. So he hired Jeffrey Kessler, the attorney, who also handled Tom Brady's Deflategate case. He also represented Adrian Peterson, who's now at the Saints. And for those of you who don't know, Kessler did some international pro bono work, working on defending the double amputee sprinter Oscar Pistorius in his murder case a few years back. So Kessler is certainly no stranger to courtroom battles. He's a seasoned veteran. He knows what he's doing. A day later, we learned that the NFL would not allow the findings of an investigation made by one Kia Wright-Roberts, who is the NFL's lead investigator specifically in the areas of domestic violence. Now let me cut you off just a bit there before we continue. Go ahead, Donovan. Is Kia Wright-Roberts is part of the group that was in the aftermath of the entire Ray Rice saga, which was botched by the NFL, and some of the things that happened with Josh Brown. He decided, hey, we're going to bring in some people from from the legal field. Lisa Friel was one of them. Kia Wright-Roberts is part of her team, and these are people that who are predisposed to believe accusers and victims in these cases. Okay, so they have a forensic, but they not only do they have an axe to grind, but they also have forensic experience, legal experience to understand who's telling the truth, who's not telling the truth, what makes something credible, what doesn't make something credible, and also the tactics that are involved, how abusers speak, how someone who's innocent speaks, how a victim speaks, how someone who's lying speaks, presumably. Absolutely.
So these are the type of people that he brought in. In many ways, we might think that might stack the deck against the accused, and we know that to be the case. So this is the woman that was the lead investigator. So go ahead and continue, Donovan.
Yeah, listen, you made a very good point. Kia Wright-Roberts and Lisa Friel were brought in to essentially stack the deck and prematurely convict professional athletes. She and her notes and her opinions were kept out of the appeal hearings. Listen, Doctore, think about this. A woman who was already biased towards domestic violence and rape victims, whether they're telling the truth or not, was not allowed to tell the NFL that she recommended zero discipline for Zeke based on her findings. A woman said this. So on the legal side, the NFLPA, which of course we all know is the National Football League Players Association, they've requested a block on Elliott's suspension in light of these revelations. Now, at this point, Doctore, before I let you go off on this, Thompson, she has pictures of bruises, okay? But what people aren't really understanding is that the only evidence we have is the word of Tiffany Thompson, which multiple organizations have found to be inconsistent and non-credible, and the bruises she showed to the police, which I've said on multiple occasions could have come from anybody, including her. Then Thompson was found to have asked her friend to lie about her accusation to the cops and attempting to extort Elliott with a sex tape a few months back. Doctore, this was all before we learned about the text messages she sent to Zeke herself, telling him that if he didn't go back to her after he dumped her, that she would end his NFL career, which we all know can only mean accusing him of domestic violence. Now, I'm not a conspiracy.
Or not even ending his career, but getting a whole lot of money and making his career that much more difficult, because now he has to play for the rest of his career much the same way that Joe Mixon will, under the cloud of violence against women.
That's exactly right. Now, the NFLPA, they're alleging conspiracy. They've released a bunch of fancy legal statements, but in layman's terms, they're accusing the NFL of purposely disallowing the findings of Roberts, again, who's the lead investigator, and she talked to Tiffany Thompson 6 times, and the testimony of Thompson, the accuser, in order to keep Zeke's suspension in place. That's what was happening. It is also said that Lisa Friel, who you alluded to earlier, she is the senior vice president of investigation at the NFL. She recommended the 6-game suspension for Elliott despite having knowledge of Roberts' findings, which again isn't surprising. Here's the thing, and I'll end it on this. Here's the elephant. The elephant in the room is this, is that she was part of the deliberate decision. Those are the exact words the NFLPA used. Lisa Friel was a part of the deliberate decision to keep Roberts out of the appeal hearing. Friel, we both know she obviously has an agenda, and it appears that she may have kept evidence that would support Zeke's innocence and Thompson's lack of credibility from Roger Goodell. So when Friel recommended that suspension, of course she did it absent all of these other things. Now, Doctore, listen, I'm not here to decide whether or not this was a conspiracy. There probably is, and it wouldn't surprise me. But the bottom line is this: the fix is in, man. Zeke Elliott is being railroaded. And the fact that the NFLPA is going to file a temporary restraining order on this particular suspension, a lot of people think that this is probably just a strategic measure to maybe sway Harold Henderson's opinion one way or the other. But it said that if they uphold even one game of that suspension, they're taking it to court. And that is what's happened up to the minute. So at this very moment, we are waiting on the hearings to end and for Harold Henderson, the arbiter in this case, to come out with his findings and let us know what's going to happen from here.
So this is what's going to happen with me, Dr. Donovan, is what we've reached at this point is a watershed moment where the NFL, this is how I view it, under Goodell's leadership, they will reveal whether they were a fair arbiter of gender political accusations or a wholly owned subsidiary of the Gender Grievance Industrial Complex. That being that the rules of evidence-based fact-finding are not adhered to, but that of feminist jurisprudence. Now, we now have our answer. They have tipped their hand. The Gender Grievance Industrial Complex in sports have tipped their hand in terms of giving Tiffany Thompson the extreme benefit of the doubt when they discuss this case, but also at the NFL level. And what is feminist jurisprudence? Well, what it is it alters all facts to be viewed through a gender prism. So the most important thing to understand, Donovan, and all you folks out there, is if you're in college, for example, and there's a concept and your professor doesn't show you how to falsify that concept. In other words, how do you falsify this concept? Okay, you have to be able to falsify a concept, a theory, a piece of conjecture. But what we have at this point is one of the articles of faith of the gender grievance and sexual grievance industry is accusations of rape and domestic violence are presumed true and they are unfalsifiable. So it doesn't matter what is shown. It doesn't matter what evidence that is presented. Like this is a case of extreme evidence in favor of the accused. Kia Wright Roberts, someone who's predisposed to believe accusers and believe victims, she's a hero in this case because she went against her echo chamber in much the same way that Fred Thompson during the Watergate hearings, being a Republican, saw what Richard Nixon did and said, you know what, I'm a right winger, but goddamn, this guy did some shit. Okay. And that's what the evidence showed. Yeah, he's absolutely freaking guilty. So this is one of those things where we have someone going against their echo chamber and getting punished for it. We're going to leave that out. And that shows you that these folks are fundamentally anti-due process and they are anti-fact. It's not about the facts. It's not about helping victims. It's about this agenda. This guy is the biggest scalp they're going to get, and it doesn't matter if he's innocent or guilty. So let's talk about some of the facts in these cases. You brought up the case, the sex tapes, right? And so Tiffany Thompson was going back and forth with her friend about blackmailing him in the sex tape. So I'm going to go and actually read the transcript for all you folks who don't believe me, because here's my point in this whole thing. We see Max Kellerman, we see other folks. This is how you know that the fix is in, but also the Gender Grievance Industrial Complex has a bunch of these men in sports media in their thrall. They are scared to death to say the emperor has no clothes. I mean, they cut off Stephen A. Smith's balls 3 years ago. So it's no surprise that 2 weeks ago he said Zeke should just let it go. He should just let it go and take the suspension, even if he's innocent.
He said that shit, man. That was some bullshit.
I fell on the ground. And even someone like Shannon Sharp, who to his credit, time and time again has pointed out that there have been text messages that say that she was trying to blackmail Zeke and getting other people to lie to the police, has not gone into granular detail. But when the Ray Rice incident happened, what do? We looked at the tape over and over again. We read the transcripts. We read the police report. We read what Janae said. We read what the police said. We read what he was charged with. Everything was gone over with a fine-tooth comb. The Josh Brown case, the police reports, the recommendations by the league. In every, what was the other case? What was the most recent case? I'm trying to think.
There was there was Greg. There was Josh
Greg
Brown.
Hardy. Greg Hardy.
Right.
So Greg Hardy went to court, took his case to court, was found guilty at the lower level, and then appealed it higher and was found not guilty. So what do we default to? We default to the original finding, but there was an indictment and there's collateral evidence, a woman calling a 911 that didn't know either one, saying this guy's kicking the shit out of her. We got pictures of bruises. So whether you believe Greg Hardy committed domestic violence or not, we have strong evidence that he did, and it's a rational basis to believe that he did commit these acts. Whether you believe he did or not, I believe he probably did some of this stuff, but whether you believe it or not, there was a rational basis for him to convict. So we went over those facts with granular details, but the Gender Grievance Industrial Complex is not like you to go into granular details when they disfavor the accuser. And so that's why they continue to call her victim over and over and over again to plant that seed that he must be guilty. Because when you call somebody a victim, by definition, you are saying someone did something to them, and therefore that person is guilty, that a crime was committed. So I'm going to go through some of these text messages, right? So via Charles Robinson of Yahoo Sports, his report, the report from the 160-page report, which, by the way, is not going to be released. Surprise, surprise.
Right, exactly. Of course they're not going to release.
In which Thompson discusses with a friend the idea of selling sex tapes of herself and Elliott. Before I go into the granular details of this, remember, every time, let's look back a couple of weeks, Rob Kardashian released in a fit of beta peak, released nudes of Black China after she was sleeping in his bed and taking pictures of it, right? So we have these revenge porn laws that were created because of men posting pictures of their girlfriends to the internet naked. That was meant for their eyes only after they break up. So we have those laws in place, but nobody brings that up within the context of this. So at one point, the friend says, quote, "We could blackmail him with that." Says Thompson in response, "I want to, bro." Thompson also admitted to registering an email address with the title Ezekiel Elliott Sex Vids. Here's the full text exchange from NFL's reporters obtained by Robinson. Charles Robinson of Yahoo Sports. Thompson: "What if I sold mine in Ezekiel's sex videos?" The friend: "We'd all be millionaires." Friend: "We blackmail him with that." Thompson: "I want to, bro." The friend: "Let's do it." Thompson: "Scared?" Friend: "Shit." Friend: "I'd be like, look, give me 10K, I'll just sell our sex videos for the same amount flat." Friend: "Me and my friends trying to go on vacation and get boob jobs." Thompson: "10K, bitch, I want 20K. Thompson: "Go big or go home." Friend: "That's fine too." Now, this is a Pro Football Talk report, but notice they always, even Mike Florio says in the bottom of this article, none of this means that Elliott didn't commit domestic violence, which is always the magic words that they always fall back on. No matter what is said, no matter what is done, they frame it through the prism of he could always be guilty, right? So these are the facts out there that the NFLPA was putting out there to the media, to which the NFL responded, caping on behalf of this woman, Tiffany Thompson, this false accuser. And I'm going to use the word over and over again because nobody's using that word, false accuser. They're saying, the NFL is saying, like you said, the fix was in. A month ago, Joe Lockhart said that the NFLPA has been spreading disinformation, trying to shame the victim. Well, you know what? If you are lying about domestic violence and you lie about sexual assault to ruin somebody's career, you should be shamed. It's not victim shaming. In order for it to be victim shaming, the factual predicate must be that you are a victim. If you're not a victim, then you deserve to be shamed, and so does Tiffany Thompson, shamed by name.
I agree. And listen, that segues very smoothly into what I was going to say. Have you noticed that in all the coverage, they've stopped saying her name? They don't call her Tiffany Thompson anymore. They are calling her the accuser.
They're the victim.
Or yes, right. They're calling her the accuser or the victim. They're not saying Tiffany Thompson. And I remember
most times they are, like on the talk shows, they're not.
Yeah,
but
I haven't heard her name in a while.
Yeah, the news reports, they're still saying her name to some extent, but on the talk shows, you're right, they're not saying it at all.
Yeah, they're not saying the name. It's like they think they're they're taking a stand by calling the Washington Redskins the Washington fucking football team, like the dumbasses they are. Oh, good for you. You guys are on your moral fucking high ground. But yeah, the rhetoric that came out after Zeke was suspended, and when he made it known that he was going to appeal the decision, everyone was aware that the strategy or some of the things that Zeke's camp was putting out was shaming Tiffany Thompson, attacking her credibility. And I remember Lisa Friel going on Outside the Lines with Bob Lee, saying something to the effect of, "Well, yes, this is what domestic abusers do. This is typical domestic abuser behavior. They try to shame the victim. They try to discredit the victim." And what she was attempting to do, like most other women do, is they shame the strategy that is the most effective. Zeke Elliott thinks that he didn't domestically abuse Tiffany Thompson. He knows he didn't batter her. Listen, we weren't there, so we don't know. So what else is he supposed to do? What is he supposed to do? Say, well, okay, they accuse me, but I'm not going to victim shame her. I'm not going to accuser shame her. I'm not going to attack her credibility. I'm just going to say that I didn't do it. No, when you are defending yourself, you must go on offense. You can't just let somebody say something that you don't think you did or that you didn't do and let them get away with it because you're afraid of the public calling you victim shaming. Dude, fuck that. Chris Carter.
Defending yourself is misogyny. That's what it is. It's a zero.
Yes, that's exactly what the hell it is. Chris Carter he's a red pill guy, but he jumped on the train. He was on this past Friday. He made an appearance on Undisputed with Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp, and they were debating this thing back and forth. Shannon and Skip, they don't buy the story. They have let the world know that Zeke Elliott should not be suspended based on what we've seen and heard so far. But Chris Carter decided to go macro. What does it say about other victims and this and that and the other? Nah, bruh. Like, Zeke Elliott, listen, it's not Zeke's place to take the punishment for other domestic abusers. It's not right for him to sit out even one game for some shit that hasn't been proven that he did. That's the first thing. Here's another thing that Chris Carter said. He says, well, listen, we heard about him getting into a bar fight. We saw him pull down the top of the young lady at St. Patrick's Day, and by the way, he fucked her that night. And he said something to the effect, he said something to the effect, well, if he does this in public, well, what's he doing in private? You know what? I don't know, and neither does he. Neither does Chris Carter. You can't presume someone's behavior to be X, Y, or Z just because you see them out in public doing A, B, and C. A lot of people are making a lot of assumptions and basing it on things that they've seen, but nobody was there. No, listen, dude, everyone knows Tiffany Thompson is full of shit. Everyone knows this, but people are caping up because they want to keep their jobs. They're trying to keep the feminist imperative in place. I would submit to Chris Carter, you know what? Would you bet dollar for dollar on Ezekiel Elliott's guilt? Would you bet that money? I guarantee you he would either say yes or he wouldn't answer the question. And in both cases, he'd be full of fucking shit because he doesn't believe that Zeke Elliott is guilty. But what he's trying to do is he's trying to paint them, put him in a box with all of the other guilty guys. You can't do that. This is done on a case-by-case basis, and it stopped being about Zeke Elliott a long time ago.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Something I want to touch on, something that you pointed out, that they were pointing out, if he does this in public, what does he do in private? Now, imagine, if you will, a woman who's acting like a fool in public, showing her ass in public, flashing her top, and then somebody takes her backstage and rapes her. Will we say, because of what she did in public, what did she do in private? No, that would be called victim shaming. Okay,
that's right.
But when a man is actually a victim in the case, we don't want to call him a victim. In other words, we want to make the man have to fall back on his sword. So this is what feminist jurisprudence always does. They always play subtly on these real man tropes. A real man falls on his trope. A real man doesn't fight back against a woman's accusations. A real man takes his punishment. This is garbage, and this is the garbage of feminist jurisprudence. All right. And another thing you pointed out as well is you point out the matter with Skip and
Shannon.
Skip and Shannon said that they don't believe the case, but they said also that if they had brought up and made the substance of the allegation what he did in New Orleans, and by the way, for those of you who don't know, in February during Mardi Gras, Ezekiel Elliott was actually on one of those balconies with a young lady who had a bunch of beads grouped together, and she was flashing people. And he actually reached out and flipped up her top and flipped it down, and she kind of had that fake shock look, right? But apparently they want to use that as part of the personal conduct policy case against Zeke. Well, here's where the problem is. The question that you should always ask is, did this young lady report anything to anybody? Did she call up Lisa Friel? Did she call up Kia Wright-Roberts? Did she call up the NFL? Did she call up No More? Did she call up the New Orleans Police Department? Did she call up Ohio State? Did she call up the Dallas Cowboys? She's reported to nobody that something Zeke did was violating her. So
wait a minute, hold on now. She actually did make a phone call. She made a phone call to room service the next morning to bring up breakfast for her and Zeke.
To wash off the dick on her breath.
That's what I'm saying. Hey, you guys better bring your scrub team. Like, it's messy in this motherfucker. That's the call she made.
Absolutely. And that's what he brought up. Apparently it was in the TMZ report that he had actually banged her that night. He had sex with her. And obviously they want to have plausible deniability. So they're not going to pursue this young lady and bring her forward, because that would kill the case. So if in other words, if she comes forward and says, yeah, we were just hanging out and we were having fun and bullshitting and this, that, and the third, then that kills that explanation. So even Shannon has gone that so far as to say, if you suspend it for 2 games before that, I'm right with you. No, I'm not even going to go that far, because until this, and this is another thing about the Gender Grievance Industrial Complex, and we're going to talk about the Matt Boermeester case in a couple of weeks, the USC guy who was charged with accused of domestic violence with his girlfriend because somebody saw them roughhousing, and the young lady said, nothing happened to me. You're creating, what you're doing is you're grafting the child sexual assault model onto adult women. The child sexual assault model is very important because children know when they have been violated, but they don't know how to explicate it. They know something is wrong here, something's a little off, but they don't know what to say, right? And so you hire experts to advocate on their behalf. You show them dolls. You engage in dialogues. You use certain code words. And that way you can draw out the facts of abuse and you can advocate on their behalf, because children can, at 7 or 8, 9, sometimes they can't advocate on their behalf. But what they're doing is they're taking this model and saying, you young lady, we don't care if you say you weren't a victim or you don't go forward. If we think what you did, it's the new Puritanism, okay? And that's why feminism is a lot like Puritanism, is if this looks bad in public and we don't like Zeke Elliott, everything he does in public, everything he does sexually, everything he says, we're going to frame as a pathology, even if it wasn't a pathology.
Right.
And that's what's happening here.
This is what he's about. Blah, blah, blah.
This is a pattern. This is what he's about. And it's just the same way as what we tried to move against in terms of taking a woman's past and using it against her in sexual assault. Well, this is the same thing. You can't be for one and against the other. Okay, you can't, but this is what feminism is about. It pathologizes male sexuality, and that is what the bottom line is. And it's the same thing, it pathologizes any male activity and presumes them guilty. So in the Gender Grievance Industrial Complex, feminist jurisprudence, this is the Duluth Model. And people need to understand the Duluth Model. The Duluth Model says if a man is accused of of domestic violence, he did it. And everything that happens subsequent is a result of something that he did. So if she throws a microwave at his head and he pushes her aside, the push to the side is the domestic violence.
That's right.
Or what did he do to make her want to throw it? Well, he refused to give her money. Well, that's economic violence. So everything that is done is... So everything that is done is framed to make the man look bad. So people need to understand what feminist jurisprudence is and how this whole thing is playing out and understand the game that's being played. And that's where the MRA side comes in. They are codifying the feminine imperative. And that's where, you look at what Zeke said when he was talking in the TMZ report. He was talking about how this is the woman that I'm banging, but I was banging a whole bunch of other chicks, but I told her I was the one he loved. And I said to myself, Zeke, you're doing well. You were spinning plates. You had a rotation going, like we said. We had a couple of different women in the bullpen, okay? But you told one you loved her when you didn't necessarily do it. And what they're doing is they're using that as a form of violence to hold that against you and making you look like this bad guy, this douchebag. I don't think he held frame in the best way, but what they're doing is they're taking.
He's a kid.
Yeah, he's a kid. But what I would say is that he's an instinctual alpha. He understands.
Sure. No, I get it.
Yeah. So, but what they're doing is they're taking everything and they're framing it. Oh, he was cheating on her. Blah 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 blah. So, everything is framed in a way to make it look like he is an abuser.
Yeah. Again, this is that single-edged sword. If a man fucks, it's funny how feminism has tried to sort of reverse biology. They want to pathologize male sexuality. So if a male goes out and fucks a lot of girls, he's a sex addict, or he is a rapist, or he is a sexual abuser. But if a girl goes out and gets fucked by a lot of dudes, she's empowered. She has options. She's exercising her right to do what she wants. It's good if a woman goes out and gets fucked by a bunch of dudes, but it's bad if a man fucks a lot of chicks. It does not work that way, and it never should. And that's that's actually part of what they're using against him. Ezekiel Elliott is a heterosexual football player with a high sex drive. This is bad. It's a joke now, man. It really is.
But I also want to highlight this. We talked about this on the phone. Is with all groups, we have to be careful within our own echo chamber to be able to call out our fellow travelers. Like if you say something that I don't believe in, I'm going to disagree. And if I say something you don't agree with, you may disagree. And in much the same way, Kia Wright Roberts, on the red pill side, we always call it the feminine imperative and its excesses and how they are trying to codify it. But when somebody steps out of their echo chamber and says, she said, look, this sister said, look, this bitch is lying on this dude. I am not going to co-sign on this. And she deserves to be commended for it, because in this day and age, the easy thing to do is to answer the siren song of the Gender Grievance Industrial Complex and become a hero, have this scalp on your wall and advance your career because of it. But she backed off, and she may have cost herself some money. She may be on the shit list for making Lisa Frio look bad. But hey, I think she did the right thing, and Kia Wright Roberts needs to be commended by the red pill community.
Yeah, I agree. Once again, just like we said at the top of this topic, the deck has already been stacked for Roger Goodell, Lisa Friel, Kia Wright Roberts. They are, listen, they're the legal version of Nancy Grace. They are there to convict a man before he is even arrested for said crime. But even with all of those biases, even with the deck stacked against Zeke Elliott in this particular case, the investigator who talked. Now, it's funny, we talked about this last night as well. Kia Wright Roberts, you don't have to interview an alleged victim 6 times to know that they are not credible. It usually takes the first time, especially for a woman, because women are very, very instinctive that way. It usually takes her once, maybe twice if there was something that she forgot, 3 times at the very most. But the fact that Kia Wright Roberts interviewed Tiffany Thompson 6 times tells me that Roberts was looking. Roberts almost tried to lead Thompson into convicting Elliott. I think what she did is she laid the breadcrumbs and said, okay, look, you need to say this so that I can go back and report to Friel and Goodell that you said this, and that will uphold the suspension. But guess what? Tiffany Thompson is a fucking liar, and you can't make this shit up. So what ended up happening,
I think what happened, go ahead, Donovan, I cut you off.
Yeah, what ended up happening is that Kia Wright Roberts kept giving Thompson chance after chance to make herself more credible, to convict Zeke Elliott, and she couldn't do it. So after the 6th time, she just threw her hands up and said, you know what, this bitch is lying. I have tried to lead this chick down the rabbit hole, and she just ain't taking the lead. Either this bitch is dumb, or she's lying, or she's a dumb liar. Either way, we can't suspend this kid because this girl isn't credible. I don't believe her. And if a woman doesn't believe her, then nobody should.
Yeah. And what you're saying is credible in that she may have been trying to rehabilitate Tiffany Thompson's story based on what had come up and what she had found through her investigation. But also, cops and investigators go back and investigate people when new evidence comes up that contravenes what they say, and say, so she probably said, look, what does this mean? Okay, why did you do this? Why did you do this? Why did you say that? And it may not be mutually exclusive. So sometimes when there's inconsistencies, they will go back and say, why did you say this? And are you telling me the truth or whatnot? So so there is some salience to what you're saying, but they could also be that she's trying to do the same thing that prosecutors do to victims and accusers when they know, look, the defense is going to do this to you, so we're going to grill you. All right. And so the prosecutor, what will happen in sometimes domestic violence or in a rape case is before it goes to trial, before somebody testifies, they will go to the person who's the victim or the accuser and say, look, this is what the defense is going to ask you. They're going to grill you. They're going to take away your credibility. They're going to point out this, and this in discovery. So how are you going to answer them? And how the victim or the accuser handles that determines whether they're considered an accuser or a victim or a false accuser. And I think what Kia Wright-Roberts may have also been doing is, look, this is what they're going to say. They're going to say that this means you were lying. These text messages are hard to overcome. What are you going to say? You have to explain this to me so I can explain this to my boss, who's the prosecutor. In much the same way that a junior prosecutor has to explain things to the head prosecutor or the district attorney or the state attorney, right? So this is what I think happened to Kia Roberts, Wright-Roberts case, is that I think she went back to Tiffany Thompson with the collateral evidence, because this is collateral data that we know, text messages, reports from the police, reports from friends, affidavits. What do you have to say about this? We're going to go into granular detail. Why were you here? What will this person say here? And I think each time, I think she was just trying to be diligent. Now, she may have been trying to lay the breadcrumbs, as you say, and rehabilitate her and bend over backwards. But these things aren't mutually exclusive. But I think she may have been doing this, the opposite as well, which is what many prosecutors do.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think that there's something to that. But like I said, I think that what's being lost in all of this is the fact that she went back to interview this chick 6 times. Listen, man, it doesn't take that many times to decide if someone is credible or not, especially not women, because listen, man, women have a supernatural detect dishonesty, especially from other women, because women hate each other because they know each other. But like I said, the fact that Kia Wright-Roberts, her entire investigation, her notes, her presence, and everything was essentially eliminated from these hearings, that shows us the fix is in. The NFL is not concerned with fairness. It's just like police officers. Police officers don't care if you're innocent or guilty. Well, that's what's happening here with the NFL. At least that's what it shows. The NFL couldn't give less of a shit about domestic violence and sexual assault. They could not give less of a shit. What they give a shit about is the PR campaign. And so in their minds, if they don't placate to feminists, then they think they're going to lose money. And I said this in my show the other day.
We're the consumer class, and they don't want the NFL is a pinnacle of football. And with more and more women are the ones who purchase things for the household. They put their sons in football, and with all the things that are going on with CT, they can't afford more bad press because they have only one pipeline: high school in America to college in America to the NFL. They don't have a European pipeline for talent.
No, I agree, and I think what feminists and women are doing is they're exploiting this to their advantage. Listen, man, any woman knows that Tiffany Thompson is lying through her fucking teeth, but they want to control the NFL. They want the NFL to be gyno-fucking-centric. Guess what, Doctore? It's September. You know what this month is? It's Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. The NFL kicks off on Thursday night. You think the Patriots and Chiefs are going to come out in light blue gear to raise prostate cancer awareness? Fuck no. But guess what? In October, which is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, they're going to be wearing fucking pink gloves, pink socks, looking like fucking faggots running around hitting each other. This is the power of feminism. Okay, so they got October. So now anytime all a woman has to say is he hit me and he's taken to the gallows.
Yep, absolutely. And the last thing I want to say on this before we move on to the next subject is, if this suspension stands, and I've been racking my brain about this, but it's kind of an easy move because over the past few years, I've become more and more disenchanted with the NFL, not because of domestic violence stuff, but more because of what's been happening with how these late hits are called. It's to the point where they're legislating defense out. So the NFL is not so much appointment television for me anymore, but if this suspension holds, I'm not watching any more NFL games live. I'm just not.
Really?
I'm totally, and I'm a Dolphins fan. I'll watch highlights, but I'm just pretty much disenchanted. I'm pretty much done with it. I'm disenchanted a lot with college football, but I still watch. But because of the supplication to the Gender Grievance Industrial Complex and nobody fighting back against it, and this happening now when it's obvious, this is the most obvious case of a false accusation. This should have been an easy case, right? But they have paymasters to feed. They've become a whole. They've been a symbol. Like those little bugs that go into an ant's brain and control them. You can't see the little bug that's in the brain, but you can see that the bug is doing their bidding.
No,
right?
I agree.
They've been assimilated like the Borg, and I just can't deal with it anymore. I can't give them my time or my sight or my consumer eyeballs, as it were. So,
yeah, I haven't gotten to that point yet, but I don't know. I can't imagine that it can keep going like this. Listen, I can't think of it. I mean, I've been watching the NFL since I was 10 years old. And I mean, you know, that's 3 decades, but I'm gonna tell you what, man, I've never considered it, but I'm getting close because this is getting out of hand. It really, really is. I can't support an organization that literally throws its own under the bus. I mean, dude, black men in particular, right? We get shit on enough as it is. Now we got to worry about the NFL continuing to shit on dudes. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.